Welcome back to Words and Pixels. One of the things I love about writing is the writing community. There are just so many great writing resources out there, and I love listening to writing podcasts and reading books by authors and being able to watch authors who have YouTube channels and see what they're doing and what their process is and what they're struggling with. And recently I've been following a lot of writing subreddits, and I found a lot of helpful advice on there. So I figured today we'll just have a chill video where I share some of the advice that I've come across and we'll have a little discussion about it. Some of these things are things that I do myself to keep myself motivated while I'm writing. Some of them are things that I might not do but might be a good idea. And then some are things that maybe I don't see myself doing, but we could at least talk about it a little bit. I'm going to link to the original threads to all of those posts down below, so you can go there and read more if you like. For now, let's hop into it. Set a time for when you write. Usually that and a word count helps people be more consistent. Discipline is reliable, motivation is fleeting. That one I do like a lot. I personally have a hard time having a set time every day to write, just because my work schedule does vary a lot, especially now with the quarantine. But even before that, there are days where I work 9 to 5, there's days where I work 10 to 6, there's days I work 1 to 9, there's days I'm out from 9 to 9. So it is a little bit harder to have the same exact time every day. But it is not impossible to be able to do word counts. I still have not done that. I do it during NaNoWriMo, where NaNoWriMo I obviously have those word counts that I'm aiming for. During just the editing phase, I haven't really found a good way to quantify that yet. Right now I'm trying to do a chapter a day, but sometimes it really depends on the chapter. Sometimes that's a little too much, and then sometimes that's nothing at all. So I do think that you have to figure out what that type of discipline is for you. But I do agree with the sentiment that discipline is way more important than motivation. And even though this video is about motivation, I don't know what I titled it yet, probably something like Reddit advice for writing motivation or something. But even though motivation is important, and we're going to be talking about a lot of ways to keep yourself motivated, I do think that discipline is really the big thing here. You know, it's being able to do something on a regular basis every day. Because even when you don't feel like writing, discipline keeps you writing. Every day I drag myself to my 8 to 5 office job, I realize that much harder how badly I want to be an author. Nothing drives a word count like customer service. I'm very lucky in that I do love my day job, so this wouldn't really be motivating for me, but I could see how it might be motivating for other people. Another comment below it added, I have a pay stub from my job pinned beside my monitor. It has, "Is this it?" written on it. Pretty motivating to write every day. I think that's a bit intense, but you know what? If it works for you, it works for you. It's kind of like that board from The Simpsons where he has like all the pictures of Maggie that just say like, "Do it for her." But it's just pay stubs from your job. I find that if I unplug my internet, leave my phone somewhere else, put on non-vocal music to set the tone for my writing piece, and then set a time for 30 minutes to an hour, then I can be very productive in that period of time. I do not unplug the internet at my house, and I don't hide my phone. I think that is very admirable, though. I know for myself, if I don't have my phone next to me, I feel very anxious on the inside, and that's probably not healthy and something that I should look into. But I do definitely agree with just putting on the headphones, having some music, setting a timer and writing. I find that I am very productive when I do that, especially if I have some sort of like lo-fi music in the background or ambient noises, and then it's just 30 minutes, an hour, 45 minutes, whatever I want to write for. It's usually by the time the timer goes off, I'm like, oh, like I was really getting into my groove there. Sometimes I'll even go over the timer because I was having such a good time with the session. The hard thing is really getting your butt into the seat to do that sort of session, but I really enjoy that. This post I like a lot because this is a call out post. If you have time to scroll, you have time to write. Friendly reminder for my fellow procrastinators. There's plenty of time to write something. Just gotta get off Reddit. Catch you guys later. Happy writing. I really like that post because I actually did see that when I was scrolling through Reddit, and it actually made me turn off my phone. Well, I didn't turn it off, I put it to the side, but it made me get off my phone and start a writing session. And it is nice to just have that little reminder every once in a while, and I don't know how you could prompt that without like a really nice person on Reddit making a post to remind you. You could maybe set an alarm every once in a while just saying, hey, get off the phone. Or you could use, if you have an iPhone, they have the time limits area in the settings menu. I know Google has similar things with Android. I don't remember what it's called. But you could do that and just be able to restrict your internet usage a little bit and have a pop-up come up just saying, get off the phone, go do something. On my worst days or weeks, I force myself to write at least 250 quality words because that's 502 days, 1004 days, and that becomes the sliver of a much larger whole. I really do like that one, and I think I'm going to adopt that into my own writing process because that really just helps you build the discipline of writing every day. I think a lot of people forget, but if you're new to writing, sitting down and writing 5,000 words in one session is extremely hard, especially if you don't really know what you're doing yet. So that's a good way to start to build it up, is just make yourself write 250 words every day. It kind of reminds me a little bit of running. Right now I'm doing a Couch to 5K program, and it starts like that, where you will do intervals of walking and then you'll do a minute of jogging. You'll do 1 minute intervals of jogging. And then gradually over the weeks, you'll do 1 minute and 30 seconds of jogging. And then you'll do 3 minutes of jogging, and then 5 minutes and 8 minutes, etc. So I think that's kind of a similar thing where if you just start with a little bit, you get those habits set up for the future, and then you can increase it if you want to, or if you're feeling good at 250 words, you can stay there. And some days you might want to write more, some days you might want to just stay at that 250. So I think that's a really helpful piece of advice. I like that one a lot. People do well with routines, and if you need a trick to stick to it, one of those X effect charts might help. Though I wouldn't say you failed if you miss one day, especially if it's something you can't control. The point is to strive to build the discipline, because once you get to the really dreary parts, you're definitely going to need it. So I think what the poster there is talking about are those little don't break the chain sort of calendars, where you say, okay, I'm going to write every day, and you have a calendar, and every day you write, you just do a big X. And that's a good one where if you don't necessarily want to have a goal in mind, like if you don't want to have a word count or a time limit, that might be a good way to do it too. It's just I sat down and I worked on the project today, and you just have an X saying that you worked on it. And there's a lot of helpful apps you can do that with, or you could just have a daily planner where you just X it off. And it is satisfying to see that large chain of X's grow over time. But it is extremely devastating when the chain gets broken, especially if you had it going for a long time. So I could see that maybe being not super motivating if you beat yourself up over failure. You gotta be able to just get back on the horse. I like my method to keep motivated. Have your hobby be a crippling addiction to find writing instruments like fountain pens. I have so many nice pens that I feel obligated to write with them. This one is just relatable. I can't say that I have an addiction to pens. I did used to have an addiction to journals though when I was younger. And I remember back in middle school what I would do was I would write and I would try to finish up a book before I bought a new one. So if I wanted to buy a new journal, I would have to finish the one that I was currently writing in, and that would motivate me because I would get so excited about going to the store and going through that little ritual of buying a new journal that I would be super duper eager to get to the end. That did kind of fade away when I got older and I got my first smartphone and I started writing on there, and that became my portable notebook. I didn't really need the journal anymore. I could also see this getting very dangerous and out of control. You don't necessarily want to always have a monetary reward on writing just because it could hurt your finances a little bit. But you could also do other types of rewards that maybe aren't monetary, like, hey, I'm going to have a nice cup of tea when I finish this writing session, or when I'm going to give myself permission to just have a night where I relax and play a game and just read a book or something. There's ways that you could maybe reward yourself a little bit without maybe guilting yourself into how much money you've sunk into your hobby. I've always loved taking a drive to nowhere in particular. Just roll down the windows and blast some of your favorite music. Works like a charm for me. I also do like to think about my books while I'm driving. Not in a way that I'm distracted, just to make it clear. Like, I'm still paying attention to the road, but I do think that there is something about being occupied, like your, I guess, left brain maybe being occupied, that it frees up your right brain for all of that kind of creative stuff. And I do find a lot of my best ideas come when I'm driving to work in the morning, listening to music, and all of a sudden I'll start brainstorming whatever project I'm working on, and I'll have like 10 ideas by the time I pull into the parking lot. The only problem is I have to try to remember those ideas so that way when I park I can write them all down, because it's not safe to write stuff while you're driving, so don't do it. I'll throw in taking a shower, even if you don't need one. There have been actual studies about how showers do weird stuff to our brains. If you get in the shower and think about your book, it can bring up ideas and solutions you never would have thought of and get you excited to write. I actually did have a major plot revelation about my current in progress work, where I had an amazing idea for the ending while I was in the shower. And it was a little unfortunate because the idea I had for the ending involved me going back and revising the whole rest of the draft, which I had spent such a long time working on. But I do think that being in the shower for some reason just got my brain working in the right way. Yeah, I don't know anything about there being research for the shower doing that. I wouldn't be surprised, because a lot of people say that they are more imaginative about things that they think about or conversations that they have. You always hear those stories of people coming up with like the best comeback while they're in the shower. So I could definitely see that being the case. I don't go to the shower to brainstorm though, but brainstorming does end up happening while I'm in the shower. Sometimes I'll take the big old I can't even read this one. Sometimes I'll take a big old bong rip and hit up Microsoft Word, and it'll get those thoughts flowing. Horrible for writing prose because I lose my spot, but just for spilling out theories, timelines, ideas, and story structure, it seems to work wonders, and I come up with wackier and more out-of-the-box content than I would otherwise. Also, writing out in nature is quite a bit different than from my dark bedroom. There's a church down the road with a picnic table that makes a lovely homework and writing spot. So there's so many things going on here in this post that I have to spend a moment and just break it down. First off, I do not, capital N-O-T, do not condone the use of drugs or alcohol while writing.
That's no good.
That being said, there are a lot of writers throughout history who have attributed some of their more, how should we say, creative writing sessions to use of certain substances. However, I think that there are much healthier ways to motivate yourself to write, and much healthier ways to brainstorm and get ideas and have a productive writing session. But I do like that second piece of advice though, where, they talk about writing outside, and I do think that having that change of scenery can help with motivation. I know for me, before the quarantine happened, of course, I used to like to go to Panera or Starbucks and just be able to sit and write. And I know it's like the cliche author in Starbucks writing their book, but it was nice to just have that change of scenery and have a cup of tea. I never thought about writing outside though. I think writing outside would be a fun experience. So maybe once all this is over, I would try going to a park and doing a writing session. I think that could be fun. I love taking a walk and thinking about the story for my future book, thinking about the plot, setting, protagonist, and the villain. Every time I'm like, this is pretty cool, shame it doesn't exist yet. It gives me some motivation. Music also helps a lot. Sometimes I get brand new ideas just by listening to either a song or a movie soundtrack. I do think that walking is beneficial for coming up with ideas. I know for me, it's not really, because when I walk or when I run, I'm very focused on the walking and running. It almost becomes like a meditative activity for me where the walking and the running is my main focus. Unless I'm listening to like a podcast or something, then the podcast becomes my main focus. But I find I get very in tune with my body and my mind kind of shuts off and becomes very passive during that time, which I think is also necessary. Sometimes you do need to get out of your thoughts a little bit and just have that space from yourself. But for other people, I could see how it might have a similar effect to taking a shower, like we were talking about earlier, or going for a drive. I do really like the part about it's a shame that the story doesn't exist yet because I think it's cool. And for me, I would say that's probably my most motivating force for writing, is just this idea of I really like these stories, I really like these characters, I really like this world that I've built, and I want to be able to share it with people. I want to make it a thing that people can read and let it have some sort of physical form. So I'm like, hey, this is the sort of thing that I want to read, and it's cool to be able to bring that to other people. And maybe nobody will read it, but at least I'll know that I got that story out there and now it exists, and now it is an option for people to be able to pick up if they think they would like it. And that's it for this video. I want to give a big thank you to all of the people who created the posts that were featured here. Like I said, I'm going to link everything down in the description below, but I appreciate that these nice people took the time out of their day to write some helpful advice on the internet for others. So thank you to all of them for being cool, awesome people. I had a really fun time making this video actually, and I'd like to do more of them. So if you have any ideas for topics in writing that you would like to see featured, just leave them in the comments down below and I'll work on putting them together. But until next time, thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye! But thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of the day. I hear an ice cream truck. Do I have to wait for the ice cream truck to go? Go away. Who's gonna get ice cream during a quarantine?